Good evening. Good evening. We are live on Facebook, on YouTube. We are live on Light FM from Beckway. Tonight, our program transformed your mental health and you. We have a very special guest this evening with us, our co host, colleague, and business partner, who we would introduce to you quite shortly. Please free to share the live that others may get to see this important program tonight. Good evening to our viewers. Thanks so much for joining us. Tonight we are discussing your mental health and you. We are live this evening with Transformed. Let me go right ahead then and bring our guests into the program. Our co-host for this program this evening will join us. Say good evening to Dr. Raylenberg. Good to have you with us.
Thank you,
Hi.
thank you. Hello, good night.
Hello. Welcome home. Welcome back to St. Vincent and
hmm
the Grenadines.
Well, thank you. It's good to be back.
Yeah, just in the background there, we having some instrumental Afro dance, bring us back into our culture. Yeah. Okay. Really good to see you. I know you're very busy. Good evening to all of our viewers. Those on Light FM, Beckway. Those on YouTube. Those on our Facebook pages. Good evening to you. Good evening again. You are on Transform this evening, and the topic is your mental health and you, with Dr. Raylan Burke and myself, Dr. Ashley John. In this evening's program, we are going to be discussing what is mental health, observations we have made. We are also going to be looking at, those observations that we have made, especially in St. Vincent and the Grenadines when it comes to mental health. How does one know when they are having mental health challenges? Triggers, the red flags that you should look out for and know. Identifying some mental health challenges, some solutions, the vision behind Transform, and then we will wrap it all up by telling you how we will be able to serve you. So once again, welcome to Transform this evening, co-hosted this evening by Dr. Raylan Burke, myself, Dr. Ashley John. As we jump right into it this evening, once again, good evening to you, Dr. Raylan Burke. Really a pleasure having you on, taking
Pleasure
the
to be
time out
here.
from your very busy schedule to be here with us. We're really, really happy to have you with us. So we want to start this evening very, by just asking you to just tell us about this Dr. Raylenberg. Who is Dr. Raylenberg? A
hmm
young Vincentian scholar, medical doctor, a woman at that. So tell us a bit about yourself.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good night. It's a pleasure to be here. Hope you are having a fantastic night, doing well on your end. All right. So, I am Dr. Raylene Burke, proud Vincentian. I am a medical doctor by profession, an advocate, especially in areas of sexual and reproductive health and rights in women, and focusing on what I so passionately love, mental health. My focus when it started with sexual and reproductive health and rights, especially for both women and girls, started in the beautiful island of Guyana. I also would have done advocacy work, especially in areas of education, areas of poverty, and how we can help the less fortunate here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, I'm also a proud mentor for a West African foreign mentorship program. All right, that's based in Nigeria. I'm a mentor. I currently, well, previously served as director of virtual event management, where I was solely responsible for putting on programs surrounding areas where we can help to develop the minds of youths. We always hear the saying, youths are the future. Without youths, how can the world progress? So we need to focus and build up our youths as they would carry on generation upon generations. And we want to ensure that human beings, the youths are productive and have excellent quality of life. Apart from that, I'm a proud public speaker. It's something I truly love. I also love and enjoy poetry, and I'm also an entrepreneur.
Wow, wow, just awesome, awesome, excellent. For a young woman, how do you find the time? What made you to, like you should, as they say, quote unquote. Most young people are out there lazy. They're having fun. They don't care. I'm sure if they listen to your bio just now, they would know that that's a joke. I
Hmm.
really commend you. I commend you really for that achievement so far. I mean, as a young person and so on. And that is very good in terms of building that pillar, setting up your legacy very early, and taking on such a very I will have to say detail oriented field as medicine, and becoming a doctor at such a young age. You had to obviously sacrifice a lot, along with all of the other things that you mentioned that you do. I really love the fact that you mentioned the word passion. You're very passionate about what you're doing, and that is the key to actually doing anything like this. In order for us to achieve that, we have to be very passionate. And I'm really proud to have you as my co-host this evening as we discuss um, Untransformed, which is a new program. And this will be the first of many, I believe, that we will be coming here and discussing issues of mental health, and the different topics and so on. But as we go into the evening, I want to do a few reflections first before we get down into the full meat of the matter. Now, I've been following, but before I do that, let me just introduce myself to those who might not know me. I'm Dr. Ashley John. I wear so many hats myself. I'm a holistic therapeutic counselor. I'm a social entrepreneur. I'm a specialist in this community disaster management. And I also affiliated with ministry and, an entrepreneurship, work in corporate government. I served on local government in Barbados for 2 consecutive stints. And with all of this experience, it led me to the birthing of a vision that in my country, St. Vincent, we should have a holistic lifestyle center. We know that the country doesn't have, enough um, resources and so on to handle the different issues that they have. But I think with persons like us coming together and merging our visions and then, going forward, I think that that is a very good way in us helping St. Vincent to create that additional critical, resources that is needed, social resources. And that is something that I'm very too passionate about, assisting in creating that extra resource. And, I started in St. Vincent over a decade ago when I came back actually to be a counselor, but there was a change in the law at that time, and then it didn't work out. And then I decided, it was birth in my spirit, like, why not go then from the NGO level rather than trying to work through the whole systematic thing, which I did, and over a decade now, we celebrated our 10th year last year. And let me tell you, it's been a hard job, but we have really been impactful. I'm very proud to know that we have been able to work with so many young people, especially mostly females. And I know it might be surprising, but women are the ones who usually come forward. And this led me to where we are today. While I still do project management, um, one of the things that touched me deeply was that even when I was training to do entrepreneurship, we did a program about yourself, your alignment and so on. And coming out to these workshops, I mean, people were crying and I couldn't understand like what was happening, Why were people coming to these workshops and crying openly, especially young people? And that is not normal, right? And sorry about that technical glitch there. Right, we are back. Yes, sorry about that. Yes. So it had me really, really good. And I decided to look into it some more. At first, I honestly thought it was not really that serious, to be quite honest. And I really, forgive myself for that. But as I started to look into a lot of the reasons why these people were crying, I found a few things. One was the greatest one I found was a lack of self worth. Then they had the issue of depression. A lot of young people were depressed, and I believe still are. Um, and then you had a lot of the root causes. A lot of these reasons were that these young people were living through a series of abuses, and they could not find that help at the state level. Um, due to many reasons, lack of resources, confidentiality, trust, and so on. And coming out to the workshops, it was birth in my spirit that look, we need to do more. I know some persons would know me for being very openly, open about topics in terms of governance, um, facing the giants of abuse publicly, and I have no apologies for that. That all of that came from the root of empathizing with Vince Sanchez and what they were going through, and seeing like where are the gaps in our country where we can use our skills and help. Not just sit there and say, oh, it lack this and it lack that and it lack that, but what can I do to make the difference in the life of others? And I think that that is the same thing you are doing. And as you said, it has reached all over to Africa, which I'm also one of your referrals, and a proud one at that. I must say thank you once again for that referral. That program, Gala, is an excellent program. I'm right now doing the second cohort, and it's really going well again. Increasing numbers actually, and the African young people are taking advantage of these opportunities. And I wish that Vincentians would do the same at home more. You know, I know that some are making some efforts, but I wish they would reach out more and get involved and get some help. You know, so even as I was preparing for this program, Dr. Burke, this song by Lucky
Mhm,
Dubie came to my mind. I think it was Sunday I was listening to it, and he sang this song, "Living in a Crazy World." You know,
mhm,
and it hit me like, wow, that's talking about just what we plan to talk about, your
mhm,
mental health and you. And there's a few words I wanted to quote from him, from Lucky Dubie. And I know he's late now, and I really may he continue to rest in peace. But there's a few words I want to quote from him. Let me just get them up for you. And he said in his song, and I quote, "So far so good. We are still living today, but we don't know what tomorrow brings. In this crazy world, people dying like flies every day. You read about it in the news, but you still don't believe it. You only know about it when the man in the long dark coat knocks at your door." I am assuming that that is the Undertaker he meant, right?
mhm.
Because you're his next victim. Probably, some people emulate Satan as or the angel of darkness and this long black coat and so on. I don't know. But, and then he said, leaders starting wars anytime they want. Some of some for their rights, some for fun, and then their own glory. Letting people die for the wrong that they do. Oh, it's painful. He said, come on now, little boy, say your prayers before you sleep. Little boy went down on his knees and he said, oh Lord, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. And if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Because he or we are living in a crazy world. And when you really think about these words, it really, honestly speaking, this world has gone topsy turvy. It's changed a lot. I mean, I can understand, Doc, you might not know much, but persons a little older than you, like myself, right? The world has changed rapidly to me, in my experience, in the last 20 years. I talking about, I can't count the percentage. Rapid speed. I mean, in so many areas. And to me, it has gone into a tailspin. Even this week, I've been looking at so many things, which we will talk a bit about. And as we look at even how the impact of the things that we are facing in this world on Vincentians, you know, and some of the challenges that can cause many people to have a breakdown in their mental health. And as
All right. I believe he has a bit of technical difficulties on his end with Wi-Fi.
Okay, we're back. We had a break in transmission. They're just waiting on our. I'm back
Yes.
here. Okay, she's back.
All right. You're back.
Wow.
You're back.
Yes. So sorry about
Technology
that.
at
So sorry about
best.
that. Yes. Oh yes. Right. So I was saying that that there are so many things that affect people these days. And what we don't understand is that it impacts our mental health. The Bible says that the mind is where the battle is. The mind. Some people say the
Mhm.
heart, the heart, but it is the Bible meaning of heart is the mind, not the physical heart, as you would know that. When the heart starts
Mhm.
beating, that's it. In most cases,
Mhm.
that's it. Unless we call you in and get some medical help, you know, and
Yep.
resuscitate and so on. That's it. But the mind transforms and goes through so much. So, I know that you've been a very observant yourself. I know we had this discussion many months ago, about a lot of things that have been happening, and we've been speaking for over a number of years about certain challenges. What are you seeing in terms of some of these things that are affecting our Vincentian, us Vincentians, living within the Vincentian community? I know we have people in the diaspora, but in this context, like what is happening on the ground in St. Vincent and Grenadines from your observation, actually having no return from your studies, what have you been
Mhm.
observing?
Mhm. All right. Well, after returning, I was quite taken aback. I mean, yes, we always had issues with employment rate, especially when it comes to young people. But now we're seeing more and more street children, in my opinion, more and more persons living in poverty. And this can also impact mental health. People would then deem themselves as less than somebody else who may be considered a lawyer, doctor, or these are issues that I have come about. We have children I've even seen who were in homes now living on the streets. That was actually heartbreaking for me. I'm wondering, okay, why, what drove this particular child to, leave where they are to live on the street? There are so many, so many background stories that only that person would
Yeah,
know. And apart from the unemployment, you see things like persons, maybe the families are unable to fund education for children, and so you have dropouts continuing to happen, a lot of teenage pregnancy still going on. This results as well in poverty and poor quality of life. And in what I believe in, I believe that every individual should have an excellent quality of life, be able to enjoy. You only have one life to live. I believe that you should
oh yeah.
not be here to suffer. You should never be on earth to suffer.
Yes, I fully agree with you there. I mean, you touched some deep topics there, and you know why I say that, because a lot of times people see people living on the street, and they don't usually ask why. They just usually, most of the times, what they do is they make their judgments
Mhm.
and make
Mhm.
statements, stigmatize them, and so on, and nobody takes the time to find out, like, why are these people on the street. I have
Mhm.
had the pleasure, when I was doing ministry before, I took some time to meet some of the persons on the street that people call vagrants, right? And there are two people that really touched me. There was this guy that, he was very built, strong built, and so on. And I asked him, like, why, good evening to Camelo Holder. Thanks for joining us. I asked the question, why are you, I see you every evening cleaning, moving around these trolleys and picking up these people on evenings when they finish selling and so on, washing cars and so on. Why are you on the street? You know? Because he get to
Mhm.
know me, so we used to talk and
Mhm.
stuff. So I asked him one evening, I talked to him, and he said, "Boy, if I tell you the story," I said, "Yeah, I got time I want to hear."
Mhm.
And he said to me, like, he was living at home, and I think his father died there. His father passed, and the father did not leave anything for him at all. Like
Mhm.
nothing. And the house he was living in, he was asked to leave that house because I think there was in-laws and so on. And that broke that young man. There was nothing wrong with him
Mhm.
before. The fact that
Mm,
one, the father didn't leave an inheritance for him, and then he was thrown out on the street by in-laws. And his thing was, but this is my father's home, you know. And you wouldn't believe that he said, look, what I decide? I decided I can just come and live on the street. Nothing isn't wrong with him, like to say where he got a psychiatric problem or anything.
mhm,
And you would see him in Kingston. I haven't seen him for a while, but I used to see him a lot. And you would think that, oh, well, he's a cocaine man or whatever. But he started from the way that he was unfair, right? His situation at home. And then there's another young man I met, very intelligent young man. He was doing 2 degrees actually, which I didn't agree with at the same time.
mhm,
And he failed in one of his majors or something like that. And that was it for him. He's still in town. All I know. I saw recently someone wrote it up on Instagram or something about him that he needed
mhm.
help and so on. Yeah,
I believe I
someone
know.
highlighted him on Instagram. Yeah, he's still
Yeah,
in town. And again,
it's
if you have
still.
a conversation with him, it was because of failing one single subject, at university, 'cause he was doing 2 degrees at the same time. And he was trying to impress his parents, right? And that is how his turned out to be, unfortunate. And that has touched me since. So when I see him in Kingston, I have a different perspective of him. I don't
Mhm,
see him
mhm.
as a cocaine abuser. I know the root of his problem, what drove him to that.
Right.
He just gave up on everything. Very intelligent guy, but those two, and I know that there are others. There are some women I have spoken to, some young women I've had conversations with, same similar circumstances. Just things went wrong at home, and that messed with their mental health, and that was it. And I guess you know very well the Yugi Farrell case. I mean,
Mhm,
that was one that really spiraled out of hand. There's a lot of speculation around it, but that was really sad. In my assessment, and that's my personal opinion, when I first read upon her story and so on, and I saw her pictures and so on, I felt at the time that she was clinically depressed. But
mhm,
I was not familiar with her history and so on. And
mhm,
then when I read she was already getting medical assistance, obviously we wouldn't intervene. But it is stories like that that really, touches my heart. And a lot of other, as you said, a lot of Vincentians are facing same, and they don't understand that it is impacting their quality of life. So I'm very glad that you touched on that. And if we could just identify, a few things with you, like for example, um, we got there like these are things that happen now publicly that everyone can see. So it's like appearing in the news at night. You have when the rule of law, order, and injustice is spiraling out of control. The intentions are complaining about, oh, the country gets so. Why is there so much violence? Why is there so much killing all of a sudden in this small country? Why are so many women being murdered so brutally? Right? The manner in how some policies are being implemented, and not that the policies people argue for the policy, but my challenge with it is the impact that it has when you do not implement that policy in a manner that would not impact the people. And if I saw last night, yes, I don't know if this video was new or if this was an old video someone was showing. I think it was one of the reporters showed it about some scene at the Kingston market where
mhm,
this vendor, she was a senior vendor, and she was, I think they came to her or something, and this lady took off her top. She had her pants like showing out all her undergarments, and she was just pacing up and down and screaming, and she chucked the officer, not a police, it looked like maybe the market officer. She gave him one big chuck, and she
mhm,
was like, ugh, she was lucid. And you see, a lot of people do not sit down to take the time to understand the impact of these types of decisions, right? And how it affects the mental health of the citizens. You know, um, as I said again, the excessive incidents of abuse and gender-based violence. Now we see it is not just the person being abused, the victim or the abuser, but how does it impact others around in the community? People are scared to come outside. People are afraid to shut down. They get depressed and so on. Then they frustrate. You see a lot of people nowadays frustrated, very frustrated. The easiest thing to trip them off, to curse you,
Mhm.
in the worst way. Like wow, so easy. Like me now, I'm so afraid to even go through town and stuff because I don't want to mash anyone. I don't want to brush anybody. People are so frustrated and aggressive these days that I think if the wind blow too hard on them, they attack. They would attack. You know. So along with the ones you mentioned, those are some of the things that are of grave concern to me. And I remember I was in Kingston recently and I saw these young boys selling by the PH variant. I know that the rules has changed. And I mean, to me, as a therapist, my concern there was not about the breaking of the law. I know that the law was broken. Yes, there will be repercussions. But I think that the lawmakers and the law implementers, enforcers, need to be mindful that while you might be addressing a minor charge, because in the court those things are minor, you are creating a major mental health crisis in the island, right? So you got four young men that you cut off the quality of life, sudden like that, rough. You arrest them in a most cruel way, using the heaviest arm of the law, black squad and submachine guns and 45s. And I mean, if you understand firearms, you know that those are the most aggressive assault weapons, right? Those are for real violent people. And when you approach four young men like that, and in the middle of town in front of a whole crowd, and you do them that, you are spiraling a problem right there, not the Senate. How are, can they cope with that type of trauma, with that type of response? You know, can't I ask the question? Can't we find other ways to deal with these problems so that there's a win-win and it does not impact on people's mental health? And I mean, so many things are happening in the country. We just see the court in the news there that the court just reversed the decision of the government calling it unconstitutional. And then you have the issue with there's supposed to be an appeal. And you notice what happened, right? From the time that an appeal was mentioned, you realize that people just spiral out of control again, right? And what these people are not realizing, right, is that when they make these decisions, they are impacting people's mental health, right? I mean, Camilla Holder says Jesus is our problem solver, our problem bearer. Definitely, he is the root and the backbone,
I agree.
And I'm going to talk about that a little bit as we go into deeper. But let me get to you now, Dr. Burt. Like, you know, when we look at these problems and so on, like in terms of affecting, because people think that our mental health just drops out the sky. No, it's a cause. It's something causes it to happen, right? Um, you know, like today you will find it a little bit now, but before, remember, everybody needs to say you're crazy. Call people crazy and make sport of it. Oh, he's a crazy man or she's a crazy woman, and they're making fun. And then when we were younger, it was a pet peeve for people to visit counselors and psychologists or psychiatrists. People would want to know, like, hey, you're going to shrink? Even to go to a doctor and the doctor asks, like, I remember I was in hospital and, they were treating me and I was shocked, to be quite honest, that
Mhm.
the nurse in her, she said, oh, we have to do this assessment. So I'm thinking like diet and, that kind of stuff. But then she starts to ask me these questions and like, hey, like, that I was not expecting, honestly. I mean, that shocked me. Like, she said to me, like, like, we need to find out. So, we got to ask you these things. We know
Mhm.
it's hard to answer, but we have to ask you. And I was not, honestly speaking, doc, I was not looking for those things, right? I was just not about relationships and, you and anybody had been, not getting along well recently. And I mean, like,
Mhm.
hey, I was really, really surprised, to be quite honest. I was, and it's good to see medical doctors actually pay attention to even those areas of a person's life, you know. So people talk about mental health, right? So in your view, what is this mental health that people talk
Mhm. All right. So mental health, when you think about it, mental health is where you enjoy an excellent life, where you would be at peace. You get home from work, and no matter how stressful work was, how school was, you sit down, you relax, and you reset. You keep that positive thinking, that positive thoughts always. Yes, you may face negative situations every day in your life. There are obstacles, stumbling blocks that can deter you. But with mental health, having a good mental health means that you can bounce back without having any changes in how you view yourself, in how you view the world, in how you view your colleagues, your boss, your teacher. All right, having an excellent mental health also takes into consideration you just living life to the fullest. Yes, you might see it as difficult. No, maybe you're young. Maybe you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have so many things that I need to achieve. I'm not achieving it as I should. But always bear in mind that nothing good comes easy. Everything takes time, and use every situation, every journey as a learning step, and enjoy the moment. Enjoy it. With a good mental health, you just have to maintain positivity. That's what it all boils down to. Being positive, no matter the circumstances that you are faced with.
Wow, I love how you put it. I made a few notes there, and it's something that I want you to go back to. You mentioned when something happens, how you view yourself. Now, there are a lot of persons out there who are suffering from low self worth, and that impacts your mental health so much that people do not even understand it. And you know, you mentioned here that when you bounce back, with a good mental health, it changes the way you view yourself. I want you to expand on that a little bit because I know that there are people out there who, for example, when they don't achieve something they set out to get, they turn inwardly and they start to say, I mean, even in the past, in our culture, you used to hear a lot of parents telling children, oh, you're dotish. Um, you would never turn out to be nothing good. Different things like that. What do you have to say about that in terms of how it impacts your mental health and how
Mhm,
should people really view that? I want you to touch on that part a little more.
mhm,
If you could expand on that.
mhm. So what I tell people now, I tell people failure is nothing bad.
Right.
Going to school, the system teaches that, oh, you fail, oh, this is something terrible. But really
Mm-hmm.
and truly, failure is nothing bad. You use failure to your advantage. You learn and you move forward. We all would have failed in some parts of our lives. We all would have. Nobody's life is easy. Nobody's life is smooth, right? We just always have to have a plan B, be able to learn. And that's the key word. They be able to learn from mistakes and use a different strategy to move forward. Failure is never
Yes.
anything bad, never bad.
Yes. Failure is nothing bad. Use it to your advantage. I love that. I love that. I love that. And many people, we do in our programs, we do icebreaker known as celebrating your mistakes. And you'll be surprised at how people are at first how they're very scared to even play as a game, right? And people are scared to play. It's very simple. You have people say, "All right, let's do colors like orange, blue, red." And if you make a mistake, you're supposed to out your hands and you're supposed to shout, "I made a mistake." You know the amount of people that do not want to say that word, "I made a
Mm-hmm.
mistake." And
Mm-hmm.
then we say to them, well, in order for you to learn from the lesson in the game, you have to be able to go through the phrase, "I made a mistake."
Mm-hmm.
And when they do that, the way that they feel after compared to how they would feel before, they are so surprised that, wow, I could actually feel good about making a mistake. And a lot of people are surprised, that again, it is how you view it, right? And it depends on how you view that it determines the type of mental health that you have. And a lot of persons don't know that, right? That
And
it
you look at
depends.
stories, pretend like for example Oprah. You look at Steve Harvey. Those stories, those success stories. They never had it easy. They
Yes, correct,
failed.
correct,
They never
correct.
gave up. They continued pushing forward.
I mean, I listen to so many now, and I'm like, wow, because setting up certain things, it really there's a lot of challenges, believe me. And sometimes I reflect on some of these people myself, and I'd be like, okay, okay, I see something else I could do. These people just encourage you to keep going, keep
Mhm.
going, keep going, keep going, and it really helps because when you are, and we can talk about it a little as we get further into the program, dealing with disappointments and what happens when you get disappointed. A lot of people don't realize what happens, right? And we're going to mention that a little in a short while, dealing with these disappointments. But Camilla Holder made a comment there. I want to go back to it. Jesus is our problem solver, our problem bearer. No, there are these people who would have said, I pray every day, I go to church, I sing, I give my all, and still something went wrong in my life. I heard somebody ask recently, where was God when these things were happening? Where is this God that we talk about? And so much wickedness going on in the world and so on. Even that, a lot of people do not understand how to deal with it. People have to be taught the correct way of seeing God as the problem solver and the problem bearer. Because a lot of people don't understand it, right? Yes, it is good to say, but they don't understand how you go about that and how he works, right? And how to recognize the presence of God working. Because some people look for these big supernatural things, like because a
Mhm.
lot of people out there telling you about all this big phenomenon, but no. Now I want to say this here, right? That a lot of people may not realize that what we are doing here right now is a God inspired intervention. So this is God at work. A lot of people would not see it as that, right? And why I say that is that you know there's I remember when I first entered counseling, there was I was introduced to a scripture in Second Corinthians 3, and it says that the God of all compassion comforts us so that we can comfort others. And there are a lot of people who don't know that, right? And I just wish that that we would become more compassionate and more empathetic when it comes to dealing with
Mhm.
people who really need that help. There are some people that truthfully that minds are bent, and there's a solution for that from the Bible too. And people don't want to talk about it, but the very Bible says, hand them over to the devil to be shaken back to the senses, right? People don't want to touch that, they don't want to touch it. They feel that, oh, you're judgmental. But the very Bible tells you how to deal with those types of people. So you have to give the right intervention to the right persons for it to work, right? As a parent, I mean, you may not know as a parent, but there's some parents that will give a child tough love, not that you hate them, but to bring them back. Because if you leave them, they will go continue spiraling and going out astray. So one of the things I tell persons in the ministry, and I was teaching them that, is to understand that while these verses and so on are true, there are people out there who don't understand them. And when you say these things to people, help them to also understand what you mean by Jesus is our problem solver and our
Mhm.
problem bearer. Because the same God says that I have put wise counsel within the earth, right? And he tell us to be our brother's keeper and look out for you love your neighbor as yourself and do unto others as you would love them do unto you. And so people do not understand that when you're dealing with these different issues of mental health, you have to apply these scripture, right? Not just say them, but actually apply them into the life of the individual. And that is what I wanted to mention there about that, because I know that a lot of people use this thing. And as we would talk about one of the ailments, we would talk about a favorite phrase of many people. Oh, you don't have any faith. But we won't go there yet. When we get there, we are going to talk about that one a bit. And it needs to be spoken about because while I believe that, they mean well, sometimes it is done in the wrong context, right? And it could cause more harm than good, right? So as we go forward, Doc, you know, what have you been observing? Well, you mentioned earlier about the teenage pregnancies and so on. How Have you had any opportunities to speak with any of the, have you ever had an opportunity to speak with any of these individuals? How were they feeling? What was their greatest need to you? What was going on with them? Not in details, but generally.
All right, most of these young ladies, they tend to look for love. So they figure, once they have a child for an individual, that would mean that a person always stick by their side, always be there to support them financially. And that is especially what most young girls look for as well, the love and for financial support. In these tough times, they figure, okay, things are so rough for me. Let me try to find someone who I think can help me. And so therefore, they go and they get pregnant at such a tender age. All right, that's what most of them have been telling me. So that love and that safety net, financial support, because without certain men, they say that they won't be able to complete their education. They may not have anywhere to live. And, it's very heartbreaking. When you think about it, and it's a very touchy topic as well.
Very much so. Very, very much. I have dealt with many cases myself, and I am very appalled at some of the things that happen to them. And then the issue there then is the mindset. And Miss Carmela Holder said sometimes people, let me put it up there. Sometimes people do not want to understand certain things, and I can tie that into what you're saying. I'm sure that there are a lot of programs on teenage pregnancy and so on, and these some of these people do, as you said, they look for love, and they get fooled sometimes too. They get tricked, but you would never get past these problems unless you understand that. Look, that will not work.
Hmm.
That will not work. There's a correction I had to make. Two of them I would mention. One recently and one in the past. I've come across some young women who felt that modeling, if they model, I'm not talking about the decent. I'm talking about modeling the skimpy stuff.
Oh.
Oh, that is going to build my confidence. I know that
Mm.
this is going to be touchy for a lot of them, but
Mm.
I have had to tell them nope, they will not. What builds your confidence is when you improve your knowledge, not modeling. You would build your confidence maybe in a technique, your knowledge, increase the knowledge in the technique, or and so on. But it doesn't mean that it is the modeling that build your confidence. It is the knowledge that you learn about it. So you could apply that to any area of your life, right? For example, when you're dealing with how do I find love? Don't pretend as if you know everything. A lot of young people feel that they have arrived and they are the most intelligent and they know
Mhm.
everything and they don't want to listen to any advice. I mean, young as in the young teenagers and stuff. They don't want to hear anyone. Oh, you old timeish. You expect me. You want me to live like that. They tell you that. They tell you things like that, like that old time days thing that don't work no. But they don't realize that they are being saved from a lot. I know there's a saying that I learned in St. Vincent that children who don't hear what the parents say is drink hot water without sugar. And if a lot of young people took the time to understand the powerful meaning behind that, they would pull themselves together and stop making some of the mistakes that they are making. Because while that, yeah, you might need love because you come up in a family that might not have that supportiveness, you don't go out there and be careless with that.
Mhm.
Because instead of helping yourself, you're digging yourself into a deeper pit. And there are people out there who are waiting for people like that, who target you, who come after you in your vulnerable state and would abuse you. And when they're finished, they mess you up mentally, right? And a lot of people do not go as far as thinking about how will this affect my mind, my thinking, my moods, my decision making going forward. You hear a lot of young lady in particular say, young ladies say, I don't want a man. I don't. I'm not going to be with a. No,
Yes,
some people
yes.
will just stay there and say, well, but have we ever sat down to ask her, why are you saying
Why? Mhm. Mhm.
that? You know that comes from a deep, deep
Mhm.
scare, right? And and
Mhm.
and if you realize that a lot, when you look at the population, right? The numbers, the men are a little higher above the women, but I used to say, well, God was smart, he put the word that at least every woman will have a partner and so on. And the extra few will be for like death and replacement and so on. But then there are a lot of people who are even from young now saying, no, 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 I'm done with relationship. Like I
Yeah.
see 12-year olds and 13-year olds and 14-year olds like, oh, you use me. I'm like, eh? Well, what do you know about being used at 12 years old and 14 and come up with this? But our responsibility is to listen to them because if we don't, their mental health will be damaged.
Mhm.
And in a few years' time, they really they don't want to get involved in anything.
Mhm.
They don't. And people don't ever take the time to find out why. Oh, he's too petite. Oh, you this, you that. But there's a reason behind that. There's a root behind all of that. you know. And that is why I am happy that we are dealing with your mental health and you
Mhm.
this evening with my co-host, Dr. Raylan Burke. I know I'm putting you on the hot seat this evening, Dr. Burke, but I know you have a wealth of knowledge even with your young age of Vincentians and so on. And people around the globe, because we work around the globe as well. And you know, there's some specific or before we get to the specifics, right? There's this
Mhm.
big word that we wanted to look at. Triggers. That word, triggers. What?
Triggers.
Yeah. What
Triggers.
cause? Yeah. What causes that click? What makes me flare off? What causes me to react? What causes me to go into that isolation and go by myself and don't want to talk and that kind of stuff? What causes that? The triggers. Um, Many don't pay attention to them, to the red flags or the warning signs. And I've learned this in my field as a counselor that you know whenever you come across a client, don't just go by what they say is the problem. You have to go way back and finding out the root of that. What is the trigger? What is the root? What is behind all of that? You know, and what are, in your opinion, what are some of these triggers that people should look for?
Mhm. All right. Triggers in mental health. What really triggers persons to spiral out of control? First of all, anybody that you make feel less than you are. That's a huge trigger. And that ties back into low self-esteem as well. All right. Other triggers include maybe alcohol abuse, because why? We are depressed. All right. And the funny thing about it is that one trigger has so many other replications with other added triggers. One, you turn to alcohol because why? You're depressed, you're stressed, you don't know what else to turn to. You have nobody that you think you could really talk to help your problem. So you go and you drink, and it doesn't even have to be drink. You go and you binge eat. That's another complication there.
Hmm.
Other triggers being okay, and that huge one that I mentioned earlier, failure. And I think that's a massive one. And I've seen it in many situations where people cannot deal with being unsuccessful in their task. Yes, so you would feel disappointed, but that
Hmm.
doesn't mean that you should not try something different, as in a plan B to get to that set goal that you want. Many persons don't set goals as well, so they don't have a focus or any steps leading up to what they want to achieve. They just write down, okay, I want to do this, I want to accomplish this at XYZ time, and then some doesn't even set deadlines. But let's say they set deadlines and they don't have a clear vision of how they want to achieve it, and they just sit back and they wait for quote unquote the right time. There ain't no such thing as right time no more. Or there ever even such thing as the right time to begin with. You have
Correct.
to always go for what you want. Don't be waiting for the right time.
So true. As we take a quick little break, you have really said it there that there's some things that I wanna come back to you with. Let's take a quick little break to just say good evening again to our viewers on Light FM Beckway, on our YouTube page, on Facebook. on our pages on Instagram as well. Let me just say good evening. Thanks for joining us on this is the first program in Transform. Our co-host this evening is Dr. Raylan Burke, and we are discussing this evening your mental health and you. And we are going deep into some of these things and getting a good understanding of what it is, what it looks like, what you should look for, and the kind of help that is being offered, And as we continue this discussion, we're looking now at the triggers. And you mentioned some very important points there that I just wanted to come back to, Dr. Burke. So let me come right back to you there with that one in terms of the triggers that you mentioned. I took a note there when you mentioned plan B. That was the first one. A lot of people go into things, I want to do this. They don't think about that, as you were calling project management, what are the risks involved? What is the risk analysis and all these fancy terms? What have you put? What do you see as your five most biggest risks? What are your plans? And if these things should happen, what will you do? For example, one of the risks in carrying out a project, for example, is the exchange rate of money. Suppose that tomorrow that you're carrying out a project from a funder from overseas and the exchange rate changes. What are you going to do? That's a risk that people don't
Mhm.
calculate for in business, right? And then they will come up short. They come up short with the money that they're supposed to have. They can't complete the project, and the last night they can't know what to do. We're having some comments. We're going to come to the commenters shortly, and then do you have a plan B? You know, and some people will think, I don't need no plan B. What plan B you telling me about? I just going about doing what I am doing. But you do need plan B, plan A to Z, actually sometimes,
I agree.
because things change so rapidly. Yeah, things change so rapidly, honestly. And I think it is good that we plan. It is good that we got good visions, good intentions. But I've learned this now. I've been around business for over 2 decades, and in all areas, corporate, private, NGO, civil society. I mean, services, products, you name it. I've had experience in so many areas, and I can tell you that every day is a new lesson. The amount of books that are written, they're not enough. You know, things change so rapidly. If we were to really sit back and look and reflect on COVID-19, not just the part that I couldn't come outside and I had to wear my mask, or not that. How did that change our lives? How has that been on us mentally? People had to learn again how to socialize, right? How to socialize virtually versus in person. How to now separate yourself from that, right? But let's pause and go to the comments that I'm seeing here. Let me bring up one. Good evening, Tavio Simmons. Good to have you with us. Tavio says, talking about failure. I think our school system is a part of the problem. Was talking to my past classmates lately, and we realized how the school system influenced our choices.
Mhm.
Hmm. Boy,
Mhm.
you are going in the hot water
Mhm.
there, hot seat. For example, we were told work hard to go to community college. If you fail, you have to go to technical college. Hmm. Interesting, huh? And you see, they use technical college to make it look like something that failures go to. So you would imagine a student now having to go to the technical college, right? With the first thought in mind is like, boy, when they see me down the road, the first thing they can say in their uniform, I'm a failure. That reason I did.
Mhm.
Just like good evening, Donna Oliver. Donna said real hot water there. Yes. Tavio opened up a hailstorm there, boy. Whoa. You know, and yes, I tell a lot of people, right? To be honest with you, from young I can remember, doctor. We were told in my era, go to school, get all your pass your common entrance. That was the big thing in my time, Pass that common entrance for a good secondary school. So come that you filling out the form now for the secondary school choices, every parent put like in Barbados Harrison College. This child just getting 50%, but you got Harrison College, which is 90, and the pressure on that. If you don't get that, I kill you. If it's me and you
Mhm.
when you get
Mhm.
home, oh my goodness. And these children triple, precious, stressed out.
Mhm.
Then after that, they say to you, well, when you gotta come out to school with X amount of subjects, 8 and 10 and 12. And then you have to go to the best college and the university. And when you're done, you're going to get not it, you will get a good job. And I tell you, the shock of my life is you work your way up, up, up the ladder, and then you are being told by interviewers, oh, you're a good candidate for our job, but the challenge is you're overqualified. We can't hire you. Why? We can't pay you for your knowledge, your qualifications that you have. You understand what has happened there? After making a student work for nearly 20 years, hard to get all of these subjects and stuff, they go to an interview and are being told, oh, we can't hire you. You're too qualified. You understand what
Mhm.
happens at that
Mhm.
point? Then when you're telling students that, look, if you don't go to one school versus the other, I remember there was this war recently on social media about schools in St. Vincent, the top schools, grammar and what the other one, the female school, girls' high school, and so they was comparing with St. Joseph Convent, and I was like, why are they going there? Why don't they leave that alone and understand
Mhm.
that children are unique and they all learn at different levels and at different speeds, and we got different greatness in us. Like, I mean, you're a medical doctor at a young age. Come on, you had to be in a scholar to achieve that. And that is fantastic. I respect scholars. I tell people already that I detest university. I do, you know. It hasn't done me anything, doc, but anytime I come to doing studies at the university, my head is going numb. You know? And I'm like asking people, like, how do you go and study medicine for 7 years and then you were telling me about the different things you have to go through as a medical doctor? And I'm like, what? You mean even though that you would have studied for all of those years? And a lot of people
Mhm.
don't know that they see you as a medical doctor. Oh, she feels she's all of this and she feels she's all of that. But I think you should tell them some of the things that you got to, that what entails really being a doctor. Because I was shocked myself. And I must say that doctors take a lot of licks too in the system,
Mhm.
especially in this country for healthcare. The doctors are the ones who get the stick, right? And whew, it's hot, man. We had a case recently there with a young child, and the mother was obviously affected by it, traumatized, and the comments and who was adding fuel to the fire, and getting down to the nitty gritty of that case. And I can imagine the pressure that you face as a doctor yourself. And I'm looking at it from what Tavio mentioned here in terms of the education system. I personally believe, and I can say this because I have the Germany model, and there are other models like Maldives, I think it is. What they have done, they have changed their education system to where they bring a balance between academics and skills and even entrepreneurship. And they cut down the learning time and so on. So when you are finished school, you are well rounded, right? I read something recently where they said that we are taught how to remember, but not how to apply. I don't know if you or your thoughts on that and
I
how
do
it
agree with
affects
that.
your mental health. Tavio is listening for an answer. I know he just finished university as well. And I know this is why he put it there. He needs an answer, Doc. What would you say to someone like Tavio who just finished a specialist degree and in an
Mhm.
area like St. Vincent where the odds are against him in terms of finding a job with that type of degree? What would you say?
Well, the thing is, the ball is always open. No, yes, we try not to have a brain drain in St. Vincent. We really want our youth to stay and be productive citizens and help to drive SVG forward. All right, but in many cases, a lot of people tend to go away because why? It's 2, 3 years they're applying for jobs and they can't find anything. And what are they left with? They're left to seek finding employment elsewhere. Yes, it's damaging because why? We have educated persons. And I'm saying not because you go to school mean you can't be something great. We had so many people, not really talking about St. Vincent, but so many people who may have dropped out of school. They learned a skill. Having a skill is very, very beneficial, and I would give that top recommendation to get a skill and do something to have your own business. And I think that that is a way most persons should go to, because even though you have the education, or even though you're not able to develop or go to school, you're always able to find a skill. All right, and you're not finding a job, just just sit down, get pen and paper, you just start to write, put down plans, put down goals, and you just ponder on them, and you eventually keep looking. That's always also keep looking. No matter now, you might say, okay, I'm not finding anything at the time frame I want to find. Keep looking. There is always something that would pop up. The key to anything in life is to just never give up. Never ever ever give up.
How do you address these students though that are challenged, from this, because it creates a mental health issue, the
Mhm.
disappointments. How would you suggest that they deal with it? Apart from, yes, we wouldn't give up, we would look at being creative, getting a skill and so on. But in the meantime, in between that maze, what would be your suggestion? I know that you would have been faced with things like this before, and
Mhm.
even in your introduction, you mentioned a lot of the things that you were telling them that they should do that you do.
Mhm.
What would be your advice off the top of your head for students like Tavio and others who are faced with this dilemma? I know that, for example, I did a session recently with the college students, and I told them that I asked them the question, "Do you know how many students on average graduate college on a yearly basis in St. Vincent?" And they knew 700 plus. And how many of them are employed? I asked them after that, immediately after the 2 years. And like the tone went from here down. What do we say to those students? What do they do in the meantime?
In
In
the
terms of
meantime,
not just the skills side, but the
mhm.
mental health.
Mental health part of it.
Yeah,
You find books to read. I love this
right.
particular book called The Magic of Thinking Big. Highly recommend that book. So you read. Reading transforms your mindset. So read.
Okay. Reading transform you. So reading about the area that you are dealing with. So for example, if you stuck not getting a good job or whatever, read something on that we are suggesting.
Read, yes. Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Reading transforms your mind.
Because authors, they write books based also on investigations, what they would have done, and they would have gathered and put in a book. Because sometimes you there, you thinking, okay, my how the way I think is not the way somebody else thinks. You read, you can get another perspective from somebody, right? Just by reading, you would see how amazing your life would turn out when you start to read other books apart from your area of focus. Read self-help books as well. Very, very
Yes.
good. So that book, The Magic of Thinking Big, recommend, highly recommend.
I have another comment, but before we go there, I want to just mention there's a gentleman on YouTube named Mr. Vashti. He's a South African entrepreneur. He's a public speaker as well, and he's a multi-millionaire now. He's amazing. Actually, I go and listen to him a lot about dealing with, like transitioning businesses, because anyone who can become a millionaire in Africa, that person has a lot to teach, and share. And I find that we don't take, we will say, oh, Africa poor. We don't, There are people in there who can teach us a lot about how they were able to transition, reading the stories, listening to them, sharing the stories, and so on. So I agree with you, reading on different techniques and so on, and then application too, not just reading it, but application. All right, let me just go to this other comment. Good evening to you, Yvonne Huggins. She says, sometimes people in general, it's the lack of fear and not seeing the person trouble that is affecting them. They are crying silently, which is attached to the breakdown in the healthcare system. Now, uh, that one is for you.
No,
You
she
wanna
she
handle that?
She's absolutely right. We have a
Yeah.
lot of persons who mask what is really going on with them.
Hmm.
And why? They mask it out of fear that persons would laugh, like, or even downplay
Stigma.
how they feel.
Yeah.
A lot of people downplay how other people are feeling. And
But you
so
know
that
why? You know the fancy word they use, right? Doc? Be positive.
not
Fake
not
it, fake it until you make it.
mhm.
These words are very damaging.
Mhm.
You see, if used in the wrong context, if you have a person who, like Tavio described, or as Yvonne here is describing, right? And you say to that person, oh, be positive. Just be positive. You are damaging them, You're not helping them. Oh, you always negative. And as she said, this person is crying silently, right? But you don't they don't sometimes they take a long time before they say by the time they speak, they already spiral already. And a lot of people, as you said, that mask the feelings. They hide the and I must say here, men do it too, but women do it more. Women got this nice, lovely makeup, well makeover, go to the spa, they get this do over, all of that. And those women are hurting. Deep. Some men
Mhm.
would go and get a haircut and buy new clothes and stuff, but inside they're cracking. You see, because remember that these are temporary fixes, right? And if you mask it by putting on nice makeup and looking good and as we learn the coffee smile, and people may not know what I mean by a coffee smile, but they say that air hostesses give coffee smile. Yeah, that you teach us that in marketing, So when you approach the aircraft, welcome on board with a nice smile. So if you were to turn around right after they finish talking to you, you see their face just do so. I'm not saying that none of them are not genuine, but it's something that they're trained to do. It's called a coffee smile, and it quickly evaporates, like, like so. But it is damaging because it
Mhm.
feeds that unhealthy mental health,
Mhm.
And yes, Yvonne Huggins, you are very right when you mentioned that. We have another comment here by Donna Oliver. You got to find skills. So when one or two fails, you get to the other, or must work to find yourself a job. Yes. The thing that this is the area that I specialize in a lot. And one of the reasons that brought me back home. I noticed that the unemployment rate, not only the unemployment, even before I get to the unemployment rate, people don't understand that we have a big problem in St. Vincent in terms of underemployment, right? People look at unemployed, but underemployment, meaning there are people that are working in the country that are underpaid. We work for
Mhm.
some of the
Mhm.
lowest salaries in the region.
Mhm.
Still, you got people in St. Vincent working for $600 EC a
Mhm.
month.
A
I
month.
talking about a month. That's 150 EC a week, right? And some people believe that they're doing well. No, you're not. That is why now a lot of people are depressed and a lot of people are in shock and traumatized because the cost of living, what you could have get one time for $20, you don't dream of. If you right now you open $100 bill, you can't even fill a plastic bag sometimes.
Mhm.
I would say this might sound like a joke, but I love snacks still. And my shocker is that simple thing as ping pong. A pack of ping pong, peanut coated chocolate is now $6. I'm like, what? Like who?
Mhm.
Now imagine you're sending school a child, right? And you're giving them break money. How many parents could give a child $5 every single day to go to school? Let me be real. For break and then lunch. And you are buying one single ping pong for $6. That large size. The smaller one is three, and it's and you know what happening is that all of the costs going up and people's salaries raising by 1% and all kind of things. Like it is not right. It is creating a frustrated citizen. It is creating people to be desperate, to be filled with desperation. Then we talk about brain drain. When all of the other people pull out, you left with the few, or even if you got a few intelligent ones left, they have to battle among the ones who didn't do very well in school, you know? And that in itself. So when you go to work, and you come home and say, oh God, today was stressful. I feel so stressed out. I had to be showing my colleague this thing 5 and 6 and 7 times. Ugh, I can't even do my own work today. And if you constantly go to work like that, you know what happens? On mornings you don't want to go to work, you don't want to. So even before we address unemployment, we got issue of underemployment. And then the skills that I find in St. Vincent are very limited, right? In that
Mhm.
you find like a number of people doing the same thing because the population is small, the country in itself is small, and it doesn't have scope for a lot of development. Not that it can't happen, but you are having this vacuum, that not much is being done. So even if you decide to study as a specialist, where are you going to get hired in St. Vincent as a specialist? And then I saw the issue the other day of people arguing over like the age of retirement and you know people who don't want to leave jobs and so on, and the young people feel that look, some of these consultants that so old and stuff need to retire and let other people get these positions and earn something too. You know, and all of these things create stresses and stressors and mental health situations. And I don't want to go into details of certain things, but I'm very familiar with a lot that is happening. And why I went to the NGO sector was this reason: in that you see a public system that, for example, in social care, that I can tell you this. I mean, I don't have no apologies for saying it either. If you look at the social care workers in this country, 99% are women, right? And they have to deal with some very vicious offenders. And I've seen officers in the social services that are scared, terrified of dealing with some of these offenders. Not that they don't want to do the job, but the risk to their life, the lack of protection, the lack of enforcement from the law and people, the very police who's supposed to give them protection while they carry out their duties, they themselves making a mockery of abuse and so on, because a lot of them are abusers themselves. It is a whole joke. When women go to the stations to report incidents, they are being told by police, "Oh, I coming by you tonight, and give me a number," and they are already traumatized, And you go to a station thinking that, all right, this is the officer that I can trust and would give me that protection that I can't provide for myself. And their first thing out to you is like, "Oh, I want to come by you tonight." I'm like, what are we doing? Right? We are damaging people. For example, if you and a neighbor have an issue and you go and you make a report, there's things like harassment and assault. Assault don't have to become only by hitting. These police don't take those matters serious. Or that is not a we tell you can do. Oh, I'll talk to you, man. That's a big thing. Go home and make that up. You send home a person without trauma in their mind. You know what you're doing. And then people shut down. And then by the time they get you, doc, you gonna be treating one illness. And when you realize in your diagnosis, you gotta refer them to others. And a lot of people don't pay attention to that. Mental health is cause a breakdown in our physical health,
Mhm.
right? And I have this area here is very passionate to me, right? In terms of like looking at how do we help people as an intervention to get around things like this. And that is why I came home to teach entrepreneurship. I didn't come home to teach entrepreneurship for people to learn how to make money. No, I came home to provide a solution to set people to earn economic freedom so that they can improve the quality of their life. Meaning that if you could earn an extra income on the small salary that you're making, you do not have to be in a situation where you're psychologically abused. or physically abused or verbally abused. If you have children, you can take care of your children now with the extra cash you're making without taking the onslaught and so on that you have to face. When you go to an interview now, like Donna is saying here, if you have different skills, you don't have to go to these interviews where you're being exploited. You could say, no, I'm not doing it. I have a skill and I'm going to go after something different. You can walk out to these offices by saying, no, I am not having sex with you for no job. I am not letting you feel me up or touch me up or do this to me for no job. Keep your job. As Sister Sandra said, I will die with my dignity. And although I am a man, I've been shocked in my office. Females come to me for interviews and they're like, I remember one young lady asked me, when are we going in the back room? I'm like, huh? Back room? What are you talking about? But that's the norm. Whenever I go to interview, I just get asked to go in the back room. I said, no, 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 not here though. I don't know anything about that, and that is wrong. And I'm like, she said that so natural. And we know that humans are creatures of habit. So it tells me that this is something that she encountered often. So I agree with Donna that you have to find different skills. And as I know as was said recently, we have no excuse. People make excuses, but we don't have any. One of the things I know for sure that technology does, no, YouTube, for example. And if you don't want to go on YouTube, you can type it into the browser and you can learn to do a lot of different skills
Mm-hmm.
until you get the formal training, right? But a lot of people don't want to do that, right? As an earlier commenter said, that some people don't want to understand. But as we go on, sorry that I had to touch on that one, but that was very dear to my heart. That is something that was in me for years. That is what actually spiraled my vision. And I wanted to look at some of the other things that were mentioned when you talked about some of the other things we should look for, like trauma, um, sleep deprivation when you can't sleep at night. You're studying this job or you're studying, boy, how my children can eat breakfast in the morning or get to school. Um, Dealing with disappointment, which leads to from unmet expectations. And as you said, Doc, if you don't find a backup plan, if you don't have a plan B, you could end up being depressed, right? Because the depression makes you sad. And when you become too sad for too long a period, you slip into mild depression. And then they end up then isolating themselves. And then it could become worse into clinical depression and so on. And then the one that we don't talk about at all, broken heart syndrome, right? A lot of people say, oh, I break up with he or she, but do we ever sit down to look at the impact of that breakup and the fact that people got healed? The people say to you, oh, don't mind that. There are many fish in the sea. These things sound so nice. What are your thoughts on that on that one? Like when you're dealing with a lot of relationships have crumbled, and it has a lot of people developing a lot of mental health issues because they place so much emphasis on relationship. As you said, they go looking for love and so on. And this broken heart syndrome is something that shows the signs like a heart attack sometimes and so on. And it has you really down and so on. And it's psychological that it mimics illnesses and it makes you feel that you're sick medically. What would you say to persons who suffering from some of these mental health issues like parent alienation, for example? And we would touch on that, but before let me let you comment first before we go on to that one, right?
And we tend to always hear there are many fishes in the sea. I have to laugh on that one because in this day and age, we realize that relationships now they tend to be very short lived, and because people have the mentality that okay, something goes wrong. Yes, certain things in a relationship you cannot look past, but people have this mindset that okay, certain things happen in a relationship. Okay, I don't need you. They go into a relationship without genuinely having feelings for somebody. Maybe they have uh, other intentions, but I find that genuine connections in most cases are not being made, especially in this day and age. They aren't true genuine connections, especially with relationships, because why people figure that one mishap, oops, I will find somebody else. instead of trying to understand each person and trying to have that understanding and that compassion. And I feel like if we do have people who show each other that they genuinely care, that also can have some put somebody's mind at ease. You know, you come
Yes,
home
yes,
from work, it was so stressful just coming home to know that you have someone to talk to because they're truly understanding and they genuinely care for you. That for me or to anybody else, that does wonders.
yes. A lot of people don't understand the value of expression, huh? And not necessarily everyone wouldn't have the courage to do it publicly, but just to have someone to talk to about the situation. The problem is though that I must say that we are also in a world where everybody with this thing about being positive, and if you go to someone with a problem, they're like, "Oh God, you come to stress me out again with you negativeness," and this is somebody who is spiraling out of control. And if you don't help them, what's gonna happen down the
Mhm.
line? I have had the opportunity to visit many people, and it is known that a lot of people who are in the psychiatric hospitals, if they had gotten the first interventions in terms of somebody to speak to and so on, they might not have ended up there.
Mhm.
If you go in there and you sit with them, a lot of them just want someone to talk to. And they're you know what shocked me about the psychiatric hospitals? There are patients there who have been released, and they don't want to leave. They don't want to go home at all. They are comfortable. They believe that there are people there they can talk to, they can relate to, the nurses care, the doctors care. They don't want to go back out there at all to become isolated again. And I always tell people, right, if you don't know how to help a person when they speak, at least just listen and be honest with them and say, I've heard what you have said, but I really cannot. I don't have the knowledge to help you in this area,
Mhm.
right? But give them that first ear to at least get it out the system. Because just like I tell people, if you don't understand how mental health gets out of control, look at a balloon that is filled with water. It is flat, or even with air. As you blow into it, it expands, and then one day, bah, right? And that is how people trip, when it becomes because they never had a chance to release the little bits and the little pockets. So they build
Mhm.
them up, build them up, build them up, build them up. And the other one is what would you tell those persons, Doc, who believes that and feel 100% confident in saying, "Oh, I don't need to talk to anyone."
Some people deep down know that they really need to talk to somebody. Like I mentioned, people mask things as well. They tend to not want to express themselves because of how they have been they someone else made them feel because of their situation. Now, what you can do, you tell the person, look, I genuinely care. And just by saying that, I genuinely care about you and I want to see you strive in life. It's okay to be vulnerable at times once that person feels that you indeed have their interest at heart. And someone told me the other day, they said they don't really need somebody to give them advice. They just want somebody to just listen. Just listen.
I be honest with you, right? I've heard that many times, and I'm not saying it's not true in most cases, but I think that a good listener to me is somebody who could also share.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm wrong, but I'm speaking from not in terms of what the knowledge says, but from my experiences. One of the things that have helped me a lot is listening to other people. For example, if I come to you and I say, "Doc, I am feeling myself today." Yeah, you're gonna hear me, right? But when I leave you, what have you added to me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
just heard me. But if you say, even if, okay, if you say, well, you know, this is something that I think you can consider, think on these things, add something to it. You can't you can't make a decision for a person, but there is, to me, from my experience, even as a counselor, all these years, over 2 decades, I've learned, right, that along with listen and share, Ask questions, yes, but share, right? Because you'll be surprised that a lot of people think that they are alone in dealing with this situation. So I don't need somebody to talk to, or I don't need any advice. Because in their mind, they don't fix that. This is we
Mm,
dealing with this. That's not true at all.
mm-hmm.
There's nothing new under the sun. Absolutely nothing. We might think that we are the only ones, but when you read and you, like you said, go and look at different case studies and stuff, you'll be shocked the amount of people that have actually been dealing with the same thing that you have been dealing with. And I bought a book from Amazon, Healing for Damaged Emotions. Excellent. And I mean, the things that they wrote about, wow, it was like that book made me realize that, boy, mental health is nothing to play with. Huh? And if you don't deal with it early, it could be more problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other books like Reposition Yourself by T.G. Jakes. There's another one, Facing the Giants. That was another powerful one when it looked at, like the life of David and the challenges he faced and why the Psalms were written the way that the Psalms were written. David was crying out for help. Okay? But a lot of people will say, I can read two Psalms for you. or when they face a problem, they will read it. And that is why I believe it is there. But when people face similar challenges, right, they can look at how he dealt with them, you know, and it helps them a lot too as well. So I agree in terms of when we look at some of these issues. I know we can't go into the details tonight because we could spend forever talking about mental health. That topic, relationships, that's a whole
Yeah, that's huge.
series on it. That's a series. And I want people, there's something that I am very concerned about when it comes to this whole issue of love. There's this new trend now, right? That has popped up out of everybody saying, no, love is not enough. I urge people in wisdom, please, 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 please be wise with these words that you repeat that people say. Love is not enough. That's a different topic we can talk about, but ah, there's another area here of parental alienation, something that we do not at all think about. When parents separate and one parent decides, oh, I can use this child as a weapon against you. Not that yeah, we understand the frustration, but there is going to be some mental health challenges that comes with that and would affect that child when they become a young adult or so on as they grow, right? Then we got the emotional and psychological is excessive stress. How do you know when stress is too much? I've heard people say, doc, that some stress is healthy. You wanna touch on that a bit?
Some stress is healthy.
Yeah, but not too much.
I beg to differ.
Okay, I've heard people say that. Yes. Go ahead.
No
I
stress is
don't know, but
healthy. No stress is
okay.
healthy.
I'm taking it from you, but I've heard. You see, that is why you have to be wise and look into things people say to you. We missed a comment earlier from Patricia Young. So very sorry. Let me just bring it up quickly. She says that we need another college as well because a lot of children who can't get access to. There are a lot of children who can't get access to college education. I guess because the colleges. I think they need more, perhaps technical colleges. I don't know if I'm right. To do more technical stuff, more arts, and so that there would be for example, when they have like the agricultural program, the entrepreneurship program, I think there need to be like colleges that specialize in some of these areas. So when you go into the entrepreneurship college, you specialize on it for a good period of time rather than doing it as just a rough subject or something. So that when these people come out, they will be specialists in different fields, specialists in the arts and culture and so on. I don't know what's your thoughts on that, having other colleges.
Mm. Like you mentioned, having somebody to do skills. We need a
Right.
lot of that. And I think what we need to here in St. Vincent, like theater arts, we have many Vincentians who are interested in acting and
Mhm.
all those works, dance. We need those things to help drive forward.
Okay. We have one more comment before we come down to the solutions because we spend a lot of time talking about the problems. Young people are wondering here. Donna Oliver says, "What are the what are the use of some of them education from school to college, then even to your university? Then so hard was for parents financially getting them from one step to another. Then at the final analysis, no jobs for so many years, at all. It is a nervous breakdown right there, and they are being forced to leave their country to go to another to seek employment. Where are you looking to fulfill your dreams to work within your own country?" There's something she said. I know we touched on it earlier before, but there's something in here that she said that I was observing too, Doc. I don't know if you noticed it. Of recent, right? I believe within the last 5 years, you notice that a lot of young ladies in particular were leaving St. Vincent to join the army.
Oh, I've noticed that. Yes, yes, yes.
That I'm a man and I don't like the army. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate the army, but because of the type of person I am, it is a bit too regimented for me. And I'm a male. It's
Hmm.
hard and it's really tough, you know, mentally and everything. I remember when I was training in Barbados with the youth service, and there was this part of the training where they talk about they carry you through this process at the soldier base, and they tell you that they call it what? Oh boy, it's some holy name they call it, but it's a tough mental thing that they do to you to break the
Hmm.
children. Yeah, although like, I see the benefits of it, even even as one of the wardens that was working with it, it was believe me when I tell you it was tough. I talking about really tough mentally. It helped some of them, right? But it was tough. So I just use that to say that I noticed that a lot of young women in particular were joining the army. You know, the army was more in the past, more male dominated.
Males, yes, male
And
dominated. Yes.
yeah, I don't know if I'm seeing it wrong. And according to Donna Oliver here, that it concerns me that it came down to perhaps they didn't have a choice to choose to leave the comfort of the home as a young woman at 18, 20, 22, 25, to go right into the army in the UK, in the USA, in Canada. I don't know, but to me that seems harsh. That you get thrown right into the fire. Yes, I know people can say, well, they gotta survive, they gotta live, but I don't know. I don't know. It is tough. What you think about that as a young woman yourself? I'm not being gender biased here, but not that
Hmm.
I'm not concerned about the men, but it hit me that the number of women, young women, and I know a number of them actually, who I knew were very mild mannered young women, very easygoing, and now they are in the army.
Hmm.
And I'm like, whoa, these people were thrown right into the fire.
Well,
What
sometimes
were
it could be, sometimes for me it could be that persons want to challenge themselves. I mean, women we're strong, and if that's what they choose, yes, it could be that maybe that would have been the last resort because of the rate of unemployment. Hey, but in most cases, I believe women they say they want to dominate in a field that was before male dominated. They want to just challenge themselves and see where it can take them. And there are many benefits within the army, in the navy. I see nothing wrong with them choosing to do so.
that like okay, well that's a woman speaking, but for me, I'm like, to me, yes, I'm very protective, so I always think it is a bit too hard, and so on. But it's good to hear it from a woman. But Donna says here that it is this nervous breakdown right there, being forced to leave the country to go to another to seek employment. Now she mentioned this, right? I've been studying some cases in Africa that happen to a lot of Africans. Now, a lot of Africans are being recruited, for example, for domestic jobs to go to like Ukraine. No, I don't want to say the Ukraine, like the U is what do you call it? United Emirates, however you call it. You know
Mm,
those Arab, right?
mm, mhm,
And what the documentaries by BBC, by they are there on they are there. They ain't hidden. They're on YouTube by BBC and so on. What they discovered is that a lot of these young women ended up being sex trafficked. and instead of going to do domestic jobs and so on, they end up being prostituted,
Oh
and
wow.
they are traumatized and raped, and I mean, like, even sometimes me watching some of those documentaries, they bring water from my eyes, man. What the young ladies just have to go through, and they're threatened with death and all kind of stuff, and they will kill the whole family if they don't do it and that kind of stuff. I'm like, wow, and I could understand, this area of, like, for some people it is really traumatic. That where the nervous breakdown comes from, but the nervous breakdown comes from when you don't treat the trauma, right? When you allow it to prolong for too long. Sometimes it's sudden, depend on the deepness of the trauma, but and this is why I'm happy we're having this discussion on your mental health on you, because some of these things you can catch them early. The triggers, the signs, and you need to work on them. Get some help early, as we will come to next, dealing with how you can get some help and so on. And quickly, we have Alan Oliver. He has a comment. He says he believes that some stress is healthy. Stress is also a motivator. Some stress builds character. I could be wrong, but I've been wrong before. It is like you said, that is complex, but I guess from a medical perspective, I don't disagree with you, because when you think about what is stress, I don't think if it's nothing that is healthy. Am I correct in saying that? What actually is stress itself?
Absolutely. But I mean, from what Alan is saying, he says he would have experienced it. And I guess if he used that as a motivator, and that's a good thing, you use something that may have seen to be bad to your advantage. And that's good. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I do that too in terms of teaching resilience and building resilience yourself. Like you said in your backup plan, when something happens, yeah, it traumatizes you. You can still, if you are strong enough, or if you get the intervention early enough, you can deal with it. As we will come to next, as we look at the solutions, right? We can actually take it and turn the tables on it, and come out to something good. And training in terms of developing the entrepreneurial mindset. One of the things we tell people is to use the challenge as energy. Don't use it as a burden, right? Build energy from that challenge to energize you to go further. And one of the lessons I learned of being an entrepreneur is that, I thought that by opening a business and so on, that things would be nice and run smooth.
Hmm.
But nope, nope, no. It don't work like that. And one of the things I've had to learn from my mentor is that, when a problem occurs, actually, or the best businesses are created to solve problems. And
Hmm.
when a problem occurs, it brings out the best in an entrepreneur. So, I could see the angle that Alan is coming from too. Maybe not the word stress, but the challenge, or maybe the thing that you're faced with, because stress is, as you said, is not healthy. It's not healthy, but we can still, if we catch it in time, we can work on it. So let us go right into the solutions. I know you have a grand vision, and you mentioned this to me, and I was like, yes, let's go for it. Yes, yes. And that is what brought us to this night. They would not know, but we planned for this for a long time. And we are not going to tell them all the different things that happened, but this did not just happen. And tonight, I know that you're there sitting and you're in your mind like, wow, I'm actually doing it. you know. So I think we should celebrate that tonight too. That. I think we need to give you some cheers for that one. Yeah. Congratulations on this vision. So I want you to I'm going to bring it up. Tell us a bit about your vision.
All right. So for transformed, like I said, passion. This is so passion filled that it's beginning to feel a bit overwhelming because with how the world has been going, I realized that there are a lot of persons who have issues with their mental health, and this has caused them to deteriorate, not just mentally, but physically as well. You see them, they never have a smile on their face. They might once be such a joyful person, but then things have just took a whole 360. And this transform, this vision basically started when I was back in Guyana. The whole pandemic started and things just turned, persons losing their jobs, who have, turned to kill themselves because why they lost their jobs, they could no longer provide for their family seeing them now as a failure. In Guyana, seeing a lot of crimes, people being robbed in broad daylight. I was even followed twice. One of them, I know intentions was to rob me, and things that I would have seen. I'm like, they are obviously, like we mentioned, for triggers for persons
Mm.
wanting to do these things. Yes, trying to rob someone is not nothing right, but you could understand in to a certain degree what would have drove someone to want to do such a thing. Maybe they haven't had a meal in who knows weeks, and they just at their end just to get something to eat. All right, so this vision really, really stemmed with the pandemic starting, and the pandemic really and truly brought a lot of things to the surface. It was always there, but we were just not paying close enough attention. It was
Very
always
well.
there. Hmm.
Yeah, I agree. They're always there, but it's sad that it takes these things to bring them out, but it really did expose a lot of things that we need to address. And as you said here, your vision in Transform is to transform, by the way, listeners, is a mental health therapeutic, we offer a lot of mental health therapeutic services. And our motto is you matter to us. And we mean that, we don't just say that. I know, for example, Dr. Burke, one of her things was always, I just want to provide that listening ear and offer people that help. I don't want people to be just out there suffering from these problems and no one to listen to them and so on. I want to be there to help, and I would like to have some persons on board with us who could do that. I know there are two others, myself and there's another person who will come on board after, that we are passionate also about it. The mission, we want to provide therapeutic interventions, a listening ear. Again, it comes out. We want to provide that compassionate care. Not just listen, but we care. As you said earlier, we genuinely care. And wholesome health products as we strive to cultivate healthy minds. And you didn't touch on that much, but you know, we can talk about that a little bit shortly in terms of that section, in terms of how would this aspect of it help the person. And so we are going to be offering some services to people, and we're dealing with one, trauma recovery, right? Things like depression, anxiety, bereavement, recovering from that thing that hit you so hard that just that people will say, this took the wind out of me, or it knocked me off my feet. Like you there and you're frozen, you're like, God, what do I do next? I don't know what to do. I don't know how to move forward. I just feel lost. Most of the times that is trauma. That is when you are traumatized. It could be temporary or it could be long term, but it's best to catch it in the early stages. Building a better you, overcoming those issues of low self-esteem, self-worth, indecisiveness, stigma, dealing with stigma and discrimination. We have a section where we deal with love, relationships, and marriage. Yes, a lot of persons are going through difficulties, and as you said, getting people to understand what happens within relationships and how to fix them. And yes, there are some that will end, but there are some that we can salvage. You know, break free from abuse. Persons who are dealing with different types of abuses, not just domestic violence, but there are many isolation, people to understanding the difference with financial abuse. And a lot of people go through that financial and emotional abuse, right? But they don't know. They think it is normal, but it is not. And at some point, we will come back with a program and we will deal with things like that. And the final one is the healthy and natural healing through herbs and so on. That is something that I know also is very dear to your heart, that I will let you expand on. Because we touched on most of the other things before. So I think now is a good time for you to talk about that healthy and natural recovery.
I do think that this would entail a separate forum to talk about. But what we want to envision here is where persons would eat healthier, supplement their bodies because their body always needs supplementation. All right, we want to promote. Now we know that St. Vincent has a high percentage of non-communicable diseases. We see a lot of patients with diabetes and hypertension, and the complications with those kinds of illnesses is very, very detrimental. Some lead to death, and quality of life. Having persons that could live longer than they should once they eat healthy, they supplement and they just take excellent care of what they consume and put into their bodies. Their bodies is something that you should really and truly hold to the highest priority. But this is something that we will bring to you again once we're able to formulate all that we want to provide for you guys in a next live session.
So how we have a comment here by Yvonne Huggins. Let me just bring it up for you quickly. Says they need some spiritual values and to be good mentors by reading to become great publishers by writing more. It helps. Um, yes, we cannot. I would say this without any apology. You cannot discount spiritual values. Now, there's always been this argument, doctor, about. I know this is something we discussed as well about how do we approach offering therapy spiritually, counseling, and so on. And a lot of people, this has been very controversial. But you know
Mm-hmm.
what was very amazing to me? In Kingstown, there was this bookstore that had this book. It was a very big book. It was yellow. You remember it well. Christianity and psychology, how it has helped to heal many more patients. And when I read that, I picked up one thing in it that stood by me all this time. They give a case study of doctors and so on, psychologists and ministers and so on. They were looking at, where we have senior patients in hospital or shut-ins. In the past, you used to hear about these prayer meetings and the people will come at the house and sing. And what
Mm-hmm.
they said is that they did a study on them, and even though that they were medicating these seniors, they were not recovering at a fast rate. But when they combined the medicine with the prayers and the singing that the people will come, and visit and so on, they found that the healing was so fast and they bounced back. And they put a very good case that the two should actually work together. I remember when I was studying at first, I was very concerned about, I don't want to go over the line in terms of like become too scientific because of course I was oriented as a minister and so on. I wanted to be very careful there until I learned as I grow, that balance and so on. And thankfully, I have someone like you to work with where that we understand that balance well. And one of the things that we decided to do was to offer that holistic. We take a holistic approach. So it's the spirit, the mind, the body, and everything. When we look at our people that we would help, and as a medical doctor, and I know that you are also your spiritual side. How has it been for you though? What has been your how have you been able to navigate that?
I always say without God, I am nothing. So
Right.
anything that I do, I put Him first, and He has directed my path. Without Him, what's life? What's life without God? That's all I can say. What is life without Him?
I believe strongly that the knowledge and the gift and the talent that doctors have were inspired by God. I believe so. I will stick to that belief. Yes, you have to learn um, science. You got to learn how to treat people and so on. Of course, it's just the same as a minister learning how to preach and the meaning of theology and all of these different things. It is the same thing, right? Which they also term as a part of science as well. So, but the thing that I believe in is that the principles does not change, right? And that you can see that the principles apply to both. I mean, I want to go to a doctor that cares about me. I don't want to go to the doctor that don't care, that not compassionate. I want to go to a doctor that I could sit down and talk to about what is really happening to me. And if you deal with somebody, when we come back another time, we're going to deal with some of the issues that, I mean, there's so much things we could talk about. Men dealing with issues of prostate and um, premature ejaculation. And, that's a nice way of putting it, but stigma from society destroy a lot of men's minds, never realizing that these men were facing some psychological issues, mental issues. And a lot of times, stress and so on is what causes people not to be able to have good erectile functioning and good and sex and so on, as they would say. Even in women, if a woman is stressed, she's not going to be loving and She don't want to see that. I know some people be like, oh, but it's supposed to be mine and that kind of. But you gotta understand what is the mental state of that woman at the time or the emotional state, you know. And I seen cases where people insisted that, oh, this is my wife, so I should have rights to this and that. And I'm like, y'all are crazy. You understand? You know, you gotta think about the woman's health, mental health, and emotional health, and so on. All of that makes the experience even better. If you just come over like a bully or whatever, that's not going to be. That's going to be more like rape or something like that, right? And
And
you know,
vice
funny,
versa.
yeah, and funny, right?
Mhm.
When it comes to men, men don't like to be bombarded either. If you're not in the mood, you're not in the mood. No, no, not today. I ain't interested. Leave me alone. You know, because again, in men's health, they go through a process, a 3 day process, and all of that. And some people would take things like that and stigmatize people and then traumatize them. They become scared now, and oh, your size this and all kind of madness that going out there. You know, I mean, we got to come back and talk about some of these things because it is affecting a lot of people relationship. Talking about being an infidel, being when you lose your income and stuff like that, how it affects mentally, you know. And I'm happy that you created a vision like this, Doc. And I'm there to give you all the support and to work along with you, you know, in making this happen. And I say that on the backdrop that I was really solo for a while, you know, and I took a lot of stick, Doc. You know that I took a lot of stick. When I did the community awareness and the advocacy, man, I take some stick. People did not even understand what I am doing. Some people felt I was being unethical as a counselor to be talking about issues in public. I was not, you know, because I don't talk about any issue unless I'm granted permission to do that. And there are some interventions that require such levels of advocacy to get the overall issue dealt with. And I am happy to report tonight that as I read the newspapers now, not that I am happy to see more abuse, huh? I am happy to see that more people are speaking out. I am so when I see that, I feel like yes, you know, at least we know that help is on the way. That more people are coming to understand that poor mental health is not good. Not just stick there saying all the time about mental health, mental health. Let us deal with these things that affect mental health. What
Mhm.
does it look like? You
Mhm.
know, what help is there for people who are dealing with these issues so that people understand why is it that I feel this way? Why I don't want to be outside in the light? Why I don't want bed? It's not that I'm nasty. No, there's something wrong up here. It's not that you are crazy either. As people will put it, you don't have a mind disease. You could be going through a psychological issue like depression, right? The clinical depression would put you down to the point you don't comb your hair, you don't shave, you don't bathe, you don't change your clothes,
Mhm.
you don't wash your wares, you don't do any of these things. And people think that somebody just in the right mind will get up and do something like that. No, no. So there's a lot we have to talk about. And the thing that I think that we want to send the message, and I know that you're sending the message tonight, is help is here. Help is here. And as they say, we have a good gender balance. You know, right? So as we wrap up tonight, Doc, I know that we are still working on some of the details of Transform, and I know you will come back at some time and tell people how they can make contact with us and so on. But at present, we are found on Facebook page as Transform. We are found on Instagram as well. Am I correct?
That's right.
Right. We have a page on TikTok, but it's not fully active as yet. We have our email. We can be found through email. But we are not going to publish those details tonight. We will come back short soon and we will give you those when everything is finalized. But we are working in the background in a way for people to contact us. But how are we going to approach helping persons? What are the approaches that we will be taking, Dr. Burke?
All right. So via our social media platforms, so we'll even be having a WhatsApp where persons can send their messages and book appointments. We'll be having a one-on-one. We sit down and we move forward from there. So you can get in contact with us once we come back again through our various social media handles and also through WhatsApp, even calls. We we would love to have persons calling because we you guys truly matter.
Indeed, indeed. And I'm so happy that we was able to have this discussion tonight. It was rich. Thanks to all of the persons who contributed, the questions, the comments. We take your feedback very, very you know, I am happy to see the feedback that came, and as we get ready to wrap up tonight, just allowing Doc to just shuffle her thoughts there a bit as she comes back and give the final word. What are your thoughts? I have a question to throw out to you, and I hope that that would be based on your final word tonight also. But there's something that just popped in my mind that I want to throw out to you. You know,
Okay.
so just take a moment to just shake the muscles a bit and free up the mind. This
Mm.
is a very deep, heavy topic tonight, and we just touched the surface. We didn't really went full blown. We are going to be going there. Don't worry. We're going to be having these sessions at least once a month for now. We would let you know when is the next date, and we have to obviously be considerate. That we have a young, hardworking doctor on board, and she's very active in her practice. So we know that we have to be considerate of her time and so on. And I'm also very busy also in the community, but help is here. Extra help is here. We're not saying really only, but help is here. And the question to you, Doc, is this: as I read a lot of posts, conversations, and so on, I keep seeing this topic popping up all the time: mental health, mental health, mental health. Is there enough being done for mental health in St. Vincent? That comes to my mind. I mean, in our context, yes, even around the world, is there enough being done? I looked at the Nigeria elections, and I've seen men, boys, women, and only yesterday the media highlighted that it has gotten so bad mentally for Nigerians now. After the elections, they had two elections in March, February and March, and it has gotten so bad that the women now has gone to the street and are stripping themselves naked in protest. And one of the reporters, a female, she was saying that, you know, as a woman, many people wouldn't understand it, but when a woman decides to lose her dignity to be in the street naked, it means that this thing would have really hit her very, very deep. What are your thoughts on mental health, you know, in our island around the world? What are your thoughts?
There are subtle actions that persons do that tells us something big is happening.
Mhm.
Like you mentioned, stripping naked. A woman would normally not really go about, especially an African woman. They are very prideful. So to see those kind of actions, that speaks volumes. All right,
In
no,
public.
and in public.
And you
So
know what's the reason behind that? And I would say, and I didn't want to touch it, but you know what's the reason behind that? These women realize that their mandate have been stolen, in that the election was rigged. It was stolen. The people are coming out and saying, listen, the majority of us did not vote for this winner. We are not having that for another 4 years. We will not have it. And the African youth, women, men, boys, even people even bring out dogs to stop people from putting them through that another 4 years. And I wonder if the world wake up to see what is happening in Africa, in Nigeria. I don't think it as a joke. You know what they're saying is that if that Nigeria now is like a boiling pot, that if they do not, if the court right now does not resolve this thing fast and justifiable, they believe that they will bring Nigeria down to the ground in reaction, and they're trying to avoid it becoming to that stage. Now, if we think around the world, there's protests going all around the world, even in our very St. Vincent. We just had a case that was overturned, and that affect people. I know some teachers that I know cried. Didn't know what to do with their life. Policemen that people who had jobs and families didn't know what to do, and they had to go back to doing things that they thought they would never have to do again. And I'm not talking about dirty stuff. I talking about, for example, a policeman leaving a police job and then go and work as a conductor in a van just to take care of his family. How does that affect him mentally? Right? When a person with that level of training goes back out there to do something like that, and he trips, you know the danger that is. Well, I don't know. I just wanted to leave that thought at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you choose to comment to it or not, but I am very concerned about mental health these days. It's no longer something we can overlook. I don't know what's your final words, Doc, but that has been very dear to my heart in the last week.
Mm-hmm. So I want to say, pay attention to those subtle signs. You might be thinking to yourself, this person showing me that something isn't wrong, something probably isn't right. You never know. People tend to want to change up so person won't get to the idea that they are suffering silently. So just pay close attention and just be observant in your everyday life. We are not doing enough, I find, globally when it comes to mental health. There are much persons coming and speaking about mental health. And like I said, this is such a very, very tender topic that before we tend to just laugh it off. And just, when you see somebody going mad, we just laugh. It's like, oh, this person gone again. Just find it so funny, but it's not funny.
And you know what hurts me a lot, too, honestly, is that even when the person, as they would say, that the trip and so on, when they send people to handle these people, my God, the treatment that they get, that thing pains me.
Mm-hmm,
One of
mm-hmm,
the things I notice here is that why are they not sending trained people along with the security to handle these people? You
mm-hmm,
have a person that has a psychiatric disease, right? And you send a person in a normal mind, like a police officer and so on, and they approach this person as a criminal rather than somebody that has a disease of the mind. It's painful to watch, to be quite honest. And I
mm-hmm,
think that we could do better than that,
mm-hmm,
way better than that. You know, I'm happy to see that we're increasing in medical, in psychologists and psychiatrists in the island. I'm happy finally to see that, but we still far outside the mark. Real far. Every school should have more than one counselor. You can't put one counselor to deal with a roll of
mm-hmm,
600 students and all of that. And there are a lot of things we could talk about, that in terms of helping in the mental health. But this is where we begin. And for this program tonight, this is where we would end. And we want to say from Transform, thank you so much. Right? We are going to be back and we are going to be talking about a number of different issues over the times to come. And we really are happy to have you here. And Doc, I must say that I know that this took a lot out of you to be here tonight, a lot of sacrifice and planning and so on, and just being able to do this.
mm-hmm.
It took a lot of mental health as well.
Sure did.
So even we, people would think that we don't have to face it too, but we have been taught that even us, we must have persons to help us as well. Not because we help other people, but we too need people to help us. So I want to thank so much to you for this first program, and we look forward indeed to other programs. I hope that we will come back and speak about when how to identify some of these things, and when you look at a person, what are some of these signs that you mentioned that we should look for? I think that could be our next program,
Mm-hmm.
specifically on what are the things that people should look for to identify people that have mental health issues. And because I don't think that we know, a lot of people don't know. They just see them, but they don't know. And by the
Mm-hmm.
time they figure it out, it's sometimes too late. Like for example, suicide. People don't understand that the stages of suicide that takes a long process. That don't happen overnight. And I'm looking forward, Doc, to have you back in, on Transform. And yes, we will have other guests if there are any others who want to come on If you want to come on and share your experience with mental health and how you were helped, we will be willing to do that as well. Soon we will share information in public about how you can contact us and so on, and then we'll be able to take it from there. But as I said, we are on Instagram. You can find us on just type in transformed on Facebook. You will find us. Um, you find us through Instagram, TikTok. We're there on TikTok as well, and our personal pages, Dr. Braylon Burke, myself, Ashley John. You will find us there. Until we get everything finalized, we're building it bit by bit, block by block. But we are heading there. We are getting there. Thanks, Yvonne Huggins. Thanks, Alan Oliver. Thanks, Tavio, Donna Oliver, Patricia Young, and many others who joined us tonight. Some people who would not speak, Camilla Holder, who would not speak in public, but we know that their thoughts are there and they will want to say things. I know some people would even message after. That is fine with us. Send your messages. We are here to answer you and so on. And we will get the communication sorted out as soon as possible. So as we end, I think that there's no fitter way to end than this song that sung by a woman, Rita Marley, who feels it knows it. And we end on that note tonight. You know, who feels it knows it. Who experienced mental health challenges understands it well, and who learned about it as well. Who know how to identify it and help people to solve it. So thank you again, Dr. Raylan Burke. Good having you. Thank you for having such a vision, and we look forward to even more good things coming from
Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
you. Okay, beautiful. There we have it. Transform, our first program in this series, Your Mental Health and You. And we will be back. We will let you know the date as soon as it is possible. We had tonight with us our co host, Dr. Raylenberg. And it's time for me to say good night and goodbye.